And, as a true solo attorney, like I'm working weekends, I'm working after hours, after we put the kid down and after I spend some time with my wife, like I go back to the computer and I get some work done. And that's fine. That's part of the deal. But I also am not putting out fires, because when clients are not afraid to call you, you help them with problem avoidance, not problem solving. And it's sort of like, this is how Costco works. This is how like Amazon Prime works. It's like people, you're making money by marketing to your clients. Like they will continue to use you because they're already paying you. So if you could spend money marketing or make money marketing, which would you choose? I would choose to make money marketing. And so the relationship is phenomenal.
Welcome to the Real Estate Law Podcast. Thanks again for listening to us. Rory Gill with Jason Muth. And we have another attorney on the line here, Rory. And he has an interesting story. I think you're an attorney, right, Matthew?
I'm an attorney.
You're an attorney. Okay. Matthew is the subscription attorney, not just any attorney. And I am not shocked to know that this is a business model. Are you, Rory?
No, not at all. In fact, I'm really excited to be speaking with him today because I'm actually working on assembling new packages of legal services and maybe some subscription services, but it's difficult to kind of turn a law practice from the traditional billing method into offering clients, I think, what they really want, and that is a known set of services or subscription-based. So I'm really self-interested to hear what Matthew has to share with us today.
Yeah, I should say we're self-interested about all of our guests. We are. I mean, we love all the guests that come on the show, but let's introduce Matthew. This is Matthew Kerbis, the subscription attorney. He goes by Kerbis because when you walk in a room, there's no other Kerbis in the room, but there's a lot of Matthews in the room, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Kerbis is also a podcaster himself, and he has a number of endeavors, which we'll get into in a second. But, the primary one is being a subscription attorney and teaching people how to do that. I think running your own subscription attorney service, right?
So I do teach lawyers how to do it. I'm only teaching a handful at a time. 70 to 80% of what I do is practice law as an attorney, offering subscription legal services to clients.
Yeah. Where are you based out of?
I'm in the Chicagoland area, but since I'm a virtual law firm, I serve all of Illinois.
All of Illinois. Okay, so subscription services they're not new, right? I mean, like we used to get magazines in the mail back in the day, and it's the same kind of concept where you get access to an audience of people, access to a library of videos and resources and that kind of thing. Matthew, I should say Kerbis, what got you involved in wanting to do a subscription law practice?
It's so many factors, and at this point, it's really hard for me to figure out exactly where it came from. But the shortest version I could give you is when I was in law school, I was chair of the Law Student Division for the American Bar Association. That's kind of like being president of America's Law Students. They're not technically that, but kind of like that. And so I travel the country. I lobby on behalf of law students for the section of legal education and the ABA. And I'm always hearing about the two most important things for law students was can I get a job to pay back these student loans? And that was the most important thing. Then you graduate and you got 6 figures of student loan debt and you're just thinking I got to just pay down the student loan debt. Even if you went to law school and you wanted to help people, you wanted to put good out into the world. But now you can't do that. So that was sort of in the back of my head. My first job out of law school was doing, as an attorney, doing foreclosure defense work. And that's keeping a roof over people's heads. And while I wasn't really interested in the business of law at the time, I came to learn that we charged our clients just a flat amount every month that we could keep them in their homes. Kind of like the subscription model, right? So then that was sort of in the back of my head percolating. I started to get really into startups and entrepreneurship and, the SaaS model, software as a service models everywhere, subscription-based, right? And then there was also this access to justice problem that I learned about. And I was like, well, gosh, how are we gonna do that? How are we gonna solve that problem? And then during the pandemic, I had a kid, and I was like, I got to spend more time with this kid. I really like doing this, and as things are opening up, I want to be able to be there for my family and not have to go into an office every day. Since we started to do that again, and billing time just doesn't comport with being a family member and being involved with your family. So then that happened too, and I was like, well, maybe I could start this own thing. And I had been thinking about the subscription model, but when it came to how to price it and how should I actually do it and launch it, I put myself in the shoes of a client. I was thinking, well, how would I want to pay for legal services? What prices would make sense for me? Because that's a lot of questions that I get too, is like, well, how do you even price it? So what could I afford? And with having 6 figures of student loan debt myself. And I just sort of designed this practice around being able to pay back my student loans while helping people, making enough money for something that someone else would be willing to pay, and to do it in such a way that I could show other lawyers that they could do it too, so we could both close the access to justice gap and help lawyers pay down their 6-figure student loans. And so I'm both trying to do it and with the podcast Law Subscribed, teach it or show it other lawyers that they could do it too.
And at this juncture, Rory, I'm going to shut up because you have lots of questions and you have Kerbis for a half hour right now of free advice. So get at it.
Right. And I'll make this more generally applicable and not have you look at my business plan in particular, but let's animate this a little bit. Can you give us an example of what a subscription service would look like for a client? What kind of services lend themselves to the subscription model?
Anything and everything. I mean, I even just had my first episode went live where I interviewed an attorney using it for criminal defense, where I wasn't sure that it could be done with that before, right? But she's finding a way to do it, which is very clever. There's no one right way to do it. And since we're all pretty new in the space, I mean, there have been some lawyers who've been doing it for almost 10 years, but even the way that they've been doing it is just the way that they've been doing it because there's not really a community. So the way that I use it, the way that I make most of my money as the subscription attorney practicing law is as fractional in-house counsel. So, there's businesses who will never be large enough or frankly don't want to hire a full-time in-house attorney or general counsel. This is called like general counsel as a service. I've heard some people call it. So I just do whatever that business needs like an in-house attorney would. And in the same way that an in-house attorney will on occasion need to hire outside counsel for specialized legal work, I facilitate that process of hiring outside counsel. But instead of paying me a high 6-figure salary and I'm always there and benefits and everything, well, they just pay a fraction of that because they have a fraction of the legal services needs. So that allows the business owner, the founder, the CEO, who's usually also wearing a lot of other hats, marketing, finance, CFO, they're wearing all the hats. Well, now they could offload the chief legal officer hat because they're the ones negotiating their commercial leases, their contracts, their employment agreements. Maybe they have someone in HR, but now that HR person can use me for like a legal resource, right? So for right now, like prices always change, but right now it's $2,500 a year for small businesses. So it's $2,500 a month, $30,000 a year. And it's 10 projects, which is either a contracts, letters, or a research project. But very rarely do my clients go over 10 a month who are signed up with me at that level. And a lot of that involves commercial real estate related things. Some are leasing, some are even like acquiring commercial real estate and becoming landlords. And so that's like where I make like most of my revenue. But for everyday people, there's actually a huge opportunity there. And I have quite a few people signed up at $20 a month, which is like, think of it as like the Costco membership, right? Like in order to do business with Costco, you must first become an annual subscriber. Like that's kind of like how my business model works. And it's how I recommend other attorneys who want to use it, do it as well. And find the lowest accessible price that you can for the market you're trying to serve. So for me, that's $20 a month. And I do have businesses who start out at $20 a month and $50 a page. And if I eventually... people are like, lawyers are like, Rory, maybe you could write $50 a page. Like, that's not enough money. It's like, well, at scale, it is. Because individually, like for like a one-off contract, it's only 1-page contract is $50. But I've represented some clients who are leaving one job, going to another job, and they're high enough up where they have employment contracts. We're talking about 30 pages of two 15-page contracts. That's $1,500. That's pretty good. That's good money, right? And so, for businesses who hire me to do that, they're like, well, eventually it's going to stop making sense for me to pay $50 a page, and I want bundled projects. And so that's why I'm able to sell those higher level subscriptions, because some of my business clients who are paying $2,500 a month, if I were to charge them per page, they'd be paying me over $5,000 a month. And so for them, it's just a no-brainer, makes sense. So it's how you design your package. That's like a key factor of it. But for an everyday person, I actually get a lot of clients through prenups. So they're looking to do prenups. A lot of people right now, children of divorce, and now they're getting married, and they don't want to go through what their parents went through. And so they're looking for prenups. Prenups are a super easy thing to do. If you take the CLEs and you learn how to do it and you learn which applicable laws apply, it took me like a weekend to learn how to do it through the right CLEs. And I automated this process, so it doesn't take me much time because I'm not billing my time. So incentivized to be efficient. So they sign up with me to do the prenup. Then they get married. Well, the prenup says, under Illinois law anyway, but most prenups probably say this, now you have to name your now spouse in all your estate planning. Well, now they need an estate plan. So guess what I do? I do simple estate plans. I don't do super complicated ones, but usually when people are just getting married, they don't have a lot of complicated estate planning needs. So I charge a flat fee. I haven't memorized my prenup flat fee, and depending on where I get the lead from, sometimes I charge a different amount. But all my prices are on my website. So then I only charge $400 for a simple estate plan per person. And so and for spouses, I give a $100 discount on the second estate plan. So that's $700 there, right? Right there. And in addition, they're already subscribed. They already paid me the flat fee for the prenup. In Illinois, you need 2 attorneys to do the prenup, so I can't represent both parties on that. And then usually when people get married, they want to buy a house. And then I represent them on the transaction of buying a house, right? And so that's just the example. Then things come up in their life. They're presented with a contract here and there. They're already subscribed at $20 a month. And I just become their fractional in-house counsel for their life. And so even though I'm making less money there, I have more clients in that space because, it's sort of easier to do. It's very accessible pricing. And so I should really probably niche down into just one area, but I love doing both. And there's so much market opportunity here. I'm not worried about competition, which is why I'm happy to come on your podcast and talk about it.
Yep. Well, I see the clear value proposition from the client's point of view. They're getting access to legal services at a lower rate than they otherwise may have paid by committing to a subscription model. But, from the attorney's point of view, there are times when clients need a lot of attention and times when they need little attention. So take the small business owner, for example. When they're first just starting out and they're incorporating their business, that requires a lot of attention and time on the attorney's part to get them going. But maybe to maintain the business, it's a little bit less. How do you incentivize a client to stick with you with the subscription and not just free ride in the beginning when they have a lot of needs and then just cancel the subscription once their needs are a little bit less?
So I'm not worried about clients canceling the subscription because I find that even when they're not subscribed to me, they're still thinking of me as their lawyer. And so I make offboarding and onboarding super easy. They could do it all self-service in the client portal. And so they unsubscribe, they could resubscribe whenever they want. And clients do. They unsubscribe and resubscribe. Now, eventually, that's going to get tiresome. And it's only $20 a month to stay subscribed, which is part of the reason why I pick such a low accessible price to do the monthly membership model for that. And for projects like larger project type things, this is where the subscription plus flat fee model really comes in and really shines. So at $20 a month, they get access to, and I actually pulled up my flat fee services so I could actually reference them now. So the prenup is $650. It's $650 right now. But for to set up an LLC and get the operating agreement in place, I charge $850 for that for $20 a month subscribers. So yeah, that's going to require more work. So I charge a larger flat fee, so they know they sign up at $20. I charge that flat fee. Illinois law, Illinois Code of Professional Conduct for lawyers lets me take that fee up front and put it directly into my operating account. Our Rule 1.5 allows that as effective July of 2023. So very recently, it explicitly lets you do that, which is fantastic. And then I do the work, and if I keep them happy, then that's something that I show them that I could be there for other things too. And it's the onus is on me to be a good business owner and show the value to my client, and that I make it month to month gives them the confidence that I'm going to continue to try to give them value every single month. And if I'm not giving them value, then they shouldn't stay subscribed because they're not going to refer me. They're not going to leave me good reviews. And so I have all the incentives to keep them subscribed or make the offboarding process really appealing to them. I also offer ongoing subscription add-ons in addition to that. So even if they're only at $20 a month and they sign up for that Set Up Your Business package, I offer to be their Illinois registered agent. So for their business to receive their notices and other things in the mail. I have a negotiations subscription add-on where for another, and so the Illinois registered agent, I charge $50 a month for that. But then also for the negotiations add-on, if they want me to negotiate things on their behalf, now that's bundled. Those things are bundled back in with my higher level subscriptions for my small business clients. But I unbundle these for other clients because they don't, solopreneurs, freelancers, everyday people, sometimes they just want to negotiate on their own. So that's fine. So I'm not expecting to negotiate unless they want to pay me another $200 a month, in which case I'm happy to do that. Landlords really like that. I'm also happy to do it for tenants, but more landlords are more so looking to hire me than tenants right now. And so I have several landlords who are signed up at just $220 a month so they could ask me questions. And whenever there's a legal dispute, I'm not a property manager, but whenever there's a legal dispute with a tenant, I can handle that. And then if we need to draft a payment plan or a settlement agreement, then they know it's $50 a page. And so it's just about having these other subscription pricing or flat fee pricing that shows them there's more value here. You can stay subscribed, and now you don't have to worry about this. Now you can worry about the other stuff in managing your properties, or you can worry about going to the beach or spending time with your family because now you're not also doing the legal work, which you could figure out. Like I do mile wide, inch deep stuff, not the sexy things people went to law school for, but it's things that people love to just outsource and not have to worry about themselves. There's a lot of money to be made there.
How does this impact your relationship with the clients? In a way, they become members or part of a club in a sense, in a way that just an ad hoc client doesn't necessarily feel. Does it impact the relationship you have with the clients?
Absolutely. Clients are not afraid to contact me because they know they're already paying me for it. And I don't just let clients call me whenever, with the exception of two of them that I brought over with me when I started the law firm. They already have my cell phone, so they're going to call me. That's totally fine. They're excellent clients. But for all new clients after starting my firm, they get Calendly links in their client portal where they could schedule 15-minute calls with me, and that's when they could get a hold of me if they want to talk to me on Zoom or over the phone, or they can message me in the client portal whenever they want, and I typically get back within 24 to 48 hours, depending on my workload. And, as a true solo attorney, I'm working weekends, I'm working after hours, after we put the kid down and after I spend some time with my wife, I go back to the computer and I get some work done. And that's fine. That's part of the deal. But I also am not putting out fires, because when clients are not afraid to call you, you help them with problem avoidance, not problem solving. And it's sort of this is how Costco works. This is how Amazon Prime works. It's like people, you're making money by marketing to your clients. They will continue to use you because they're already paying you. So if you could spend money marketing or make money marketing, which would you choose? I would choose to make money marketing. And so the relationship is phenomenal. I don't treat it as a membership like some other organizations might that are outside of law. There are a few examples of these sprouting up in the legal community, though. Counsel for Creators being one of them, where they have monthly calls with all of their members who are subscribed. And so that's their approach. That's their unique approach. I don't see myself ever doing something like that, but there are lawyers who are treating it more like a club type membership, and making sure clients know of each other. And depending on the industry that you serve, that might work well. Counsel for Creators, a lot of creative types, maybe they could hire each other or send business back and forth. So there's value to something like that. But that is not the approach that I have chosen to take, but still super great way to build relationships with clients when they're not afraid to call you. And I'm anticipating another question, Rory, which is, well, what if they call you all the time? Or what if they schedule 15-minute calls with you in a row? That's why I love month to month, because then I could drop them 2 at the end of the month. So that's number one answer to that. The second part of the answer to that question is they have their own lives. They have their own businesses. They are trying to make money. They have more important things to do than call and talk to their lawyer all day, every day.
I'm also a little curious in how you set some of the correct boundaries and expectations with the clients, because ultimately, if they kind of think of you as their lawyer, you may be formally engaged in certain matters, but not in others. How do you have them understand, at least for your own protection with the ethical rules, how do you get them to understand where your representation of them starts and where it ends?
Yeah, so my engagement agreement is available for everyone to read, subscriptionattorney.com/#engagement. And our ethical rules require that you make sure they know what they're agreeing to. So I have several touch points where that's available, including just being publicly accessible on my website. And I think I do a pretty good job being crystal clear in that engagement agreement. I've made it as simple and as short as I can. With something somewhat complicated like subscription legal services, it can only be so brief. But I think it's really easy to understand, and it's as simple as possible. And frankly, it fully incorporates my website as part of it, because all my marketing material, all my pricing and everything is incorporated into that engagement agreement as well. And so it just sort of forces me to be transparent with everything. And I say in there, I can't help you with every single legal problem. But if you come to me early enough, Like I might be able to help you avoid legal problems that will require you hire counsel that are specialized, a mile deep in one area. And so that's sort of the goal. And it behooves me to develop those relationships and explain those things to my clients. Most of my clients will, when you go to my website, subscriptionattorney.com, there's two big buttons that jump out at you. It's schedule a call or learn more. Most of my clients will schedule a call with me. Now they can't, or like prospective clients. You can't click learn more, and you can like go down my 3 buckets of individual, freelancer, or business owner and like sign up right from my website without ever having to talk to me. I've only gotten like 3 clients who have actually ever done that. And I've gotten some people who have done that where they're outside the state of Illinois, even though my onboarding process says I can't help you if there's no nexus with the state of Illinois. I'm talking to most of my clients before they sign up. And so I'm able to answer all their questions that they have. And while that is more difficult to scale, when you're a virtual law practice that automates everything and doesn't have to hire, like my overhead is super low. It's so like I don't need to, like I'm trying to build a lifestyle business. I'm not trying to build a giant law firm. And so because of that, I'm able to like do all the onboarding and talk to potential clients and like establish from the very beginning of the relationship what they can expect.
Now, I mean, you must, to be able to do this in volume, you must have your systems down and your automations down really well. Do you have any tips and tricks for those on how they can automate their workflows and systematize their businesses?
Yeah, definitely lean into like tech tools, right? And like you can, like I'm pretty tech savvy, so I don't know how to code, but I'm really good with doing no code tools. So I've never done this, but I've heard of some lawyers who like, they go on Fiverr, they go on Upwork, and like they hire no code or automation experts to like help them build out things in Zapier. One of the guests I've had on my podcast, Sam Malai, has My Legal Academy, and like they teach lawyers how to do like funnels and Zapier automations. Like that's like part of what they teach there. My podcast has 2 sponsors that are automation tech tools, legal tech tools. And if you listen to my podcast, you learn that if you use the code LawSubscribed, you could save 10% by using those tools. I don't know if you want me to promo my sponsors on your podcast, but
Go
like
right
seriously,
ahead.
Okay, well those tools are super useful. I use them in my practice. They wouldn't be sponsors of my podcast if I didn't. 650, that is a business and employment document database and automation tool, right? So like you can't customize those documents, but 650 is a legal tech company that spun out of a big Silicon Valley law firm. And so like it's super reliable. And then Gavel is it used to be Documate. It's a bring your own documents to automate, but they've grown so much more than just document automation. They do like intake automation. They do all sorts of automations and marketplace automations. Like Gavel is one of those platforms where you could compete with LegalZoom as a law firm because you could just build products that you could also sell potential clients as part of the pipeline to get them in. That's on my product roadmap. But I am using it for other automations already. And I'm using a state-specific one called Formulaw through the Illinois Institute of Continuing Legal Education. So not all attorneys will have that available to them, but that's where, and that is super affordable at only $28 a month. They're not a sponsor, but like at $28 a month as an Illinois solo attorney, it's like a no-brainer. And they're also a document database and automation platform. What I don't love about those things is like you can't customize the documents. That's why I like a tool like Gavel, because Gavel is like a place where if you're not crazy about the documents, you could customize them and then automate things through Gavel. But just look, it takes time. I interviewed one lawyer on my podcast who's the subscription sports lawyer, and he said it took him 4 months and 3 hours to do the automations because he put it off for 4 months, and then it turns out it only took him 3 hours to like automate the thing. So like just set up the automations, like block some time and just set it up. It's not rocket science. I think it's a heck of a lot easier than practicing law to set up these automations. It's just a matter of learning how to do it or being willing to pay somebody to set it up for you. But my recommendation is be a part of that process so that you can go in and fine tune automations after the initial setup process is done.
Now, I know you're a solo attorney. Do you employ any assistants or paralegals, or do you have anybody helping you out?
Zero. I mean, like I'm only 18 months into this. So I graduated from law school in 2014. So like I'm coming up on like 10 years post law school, but I'm only 18 months at the time of recording into this solo law firm endeavor. There may be a time where I employ like fractional assistants, but I have zero plans to hire a full-time anybody. So like virtual assistants are all the rage right now. There are some platforms out there specifically for lawyers to hire VAs. And then There are platforms where you could hire like freelance attorneys or per diem attorneys, depending on what region of the U.S. you're in. And you could outsource things there. Like I will only use those platforms. I have zero plans to hire and grow. I may create like a network of attorneys who are using the subscription model and maybe even franchise the idea or do like a distributed law firm thing where like it's like a number of solo or small firm attorneys across the U.S. Because like my biggest problem now, and this part of the reason I have the podcast, is like I want more attorneys using the subscription model. So when there's something that's outside of my licensed jurisdiction or a need I can't provide, I want to be able to refer my client to an attorney who like offers also like predictable pricing for them to know how much it's going to cost them. And right now it's hard to do that. I think that answers your question.
I noticed with your podcast, so it's called Law Subscribed. So you should subscribe to that. You do denote which guests are subscription attorneys on the page Law Subscribed. So, and you also have seminars available to people to learn how to do this, right? So is there a second element to your business where you're not just being the subscription attorney, but you're now teaching people how to launch their own models for their own firms?
Yeah, so it was never my intention. I spoke at ABA Tech Show in Chicago in March of 2023. And even in the presentation, I was like, they tell us not to sell from the podium. I have nothing to sell you here. And it turns out that was a mistake because the lawyers came up to me in that room, the packed room of lawyers, and were like, I will pay you to teach me how to do this. And I was like, well, okay, I guess if there's enough demand, I have to figure out like what to charge and how to do it and figure that out. Now it's like subscriptionseminar.com was available. Like I bought it through a domain registrar. And so I built out a program and I'm very involved in it. Like it's not like one of these pre-recorded things because I don't think that will work right now. Like I don't know enough about it. I probably know more than anyone else because I also interview, I practice and I have a podcast where I interview other lawyers doing it. But it's still so new. And there are some programs out there that like get lawyers in the mindset of becoming subscription attorneys. And those programs are out there. And I've had some of those people reach out to me after taking those programs are like, I still don't know how to do it. Like, so like I'm like a nuts and bolts program. And like, I only have 2 lawyers in it right now. Like, because I am so busy practicing law that like, I really don't want to be a full-time lawyer coach. And so I have a wait list. And so like you sign up for the wait list and if I get more bandwidth or one of the lawyers finishes their program, then I could take on more. And part of the reason I'm only doing a couple at a time right now too is like I'm changing the program as I'm learning with these other lawyers who are starting to launch their subscription models, right? And so and it's like I do a lot of work, but the lawyers do tons of work on it, like because they have to look up the ethics codes, which they haven't looked at since they started their own firm, if they even did start their own firm. They like there's all these things that I make them do. Like it's almost like I call it a seminar because like I'm teaching them, like I'm their professor. And I've even thought about could I do this at a law school and like teach it to law students, but maybe they don't have enough context to appreciate it. So it's complicated. But yeah, it's like this is the subscription seminar thing, and the podcasts are all under a separate business legal entity that I have called Kerbis LLC, which is like a portmanteau, of course, of my last name and metaverse or multiverse or universe or whatever. Yeah, and it's just where I monetize all the non-lawyer stuff that I do. And so like that's like another business entity I have. But we're talking about maximum 20% of like my time is spent in that business.
You have 2 words on that website, which I'd never heard before. I had to look them up before this podcast, which was multi-potentialite and polymath. And I'm pretty well spoken, I think. And I know a lot of words. I had to look them both up. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense now. So go look those words up if you're listening, because, you might have never heard of them either. But excellent use of vocabulary.
Thank you.
I want to start to wrap up and get to the final questions because I know we have a hard stop in a little bit with this recording. But any final thoughts, Rory, before we ask those 3?
No, I mean, with attorneys, there's a kind of a lack of innovation that's kind of, been in the field and kind of a lack of imagination out there. But what I like about this process, whether it's subscription or just packaging services up in a different way, you're actually putting yourself into the client's head and asking, what does the client really want? What does the client need? What does the client understand? And starting from there, when you provide services, instead of, starting from the position of looking at what other firms do and then just emulating that.
Yeah. All right. We asked these questions of all of our guests on the podcast to wrap up the interview and just to get to know you a little bit better. Mr. Kerbis, first one is if you can get on stage for half an hour and talk about any subject in the world with 0 preparation, what would that be?
probably the subscription model, just in general, but especially for legal services. But in particular, my most important takeaway would be context matters. I could boil it all down to those two words.
Context matters. You never know. When we ask that question, sometimes like it's a stupid question because people say exactly what we've talked about for the podcast the entire time. And sometimes people throw us like a curveball, like, oh, I would talk about, my trip to Hungary, 50 years ago and what I learned there.
Well, the reason why, though, Jason, is because the subscription model will help bridge the access to justice gap, and attorneys will make more money, and more people will receive legal needs like taken care of. And so, if we could have more people, and then you're reducing the load on courts because you're doing litigation avoidance because you're solving people's problems on the front end. So, like the subscription model can actually help society, at least the U.S. society, in so many ways, right? Debt-strapped lawyers will be able to pay off their student loans. More people will get access to legal services, and we'll avoid problems as a society so that we're spending less tax dollars on the legal system. Wouldn't that be great? And so that is the context of I actually applied to be a TED Fellows when that program still existed. And then after I applied, they were like, sorry, we're canceling the program. It's I actually have a 30-minute TED Talk that I could give on this. And it's a very different conversation because that's a very different audience.
Yeah. The social justice part of it, the equality part of it, it's more than just a money grab. You bring up some really interesting points there. If I wasn't married to an attorney, I wouldn't know how much it costs for legal services, and I wouldn't know who to ask for these kind of questions. And most people aren't married to attorneys or know attorneys in their back pocket, so they probably have those exact same questions.
And when people are only paying you $20 a month, they're not expecting a fancy office and a lawyer in a suit.
Right.
And so just the total, look, it's like the difference of going to Neiman Marcus to shop or going to Target. Every lawyer is a Neiman Marcus lawyer. I'm the Target lawyer, right? I'm the Costco lawyer. I'm filling that market of which there's massive market opportunity. Some call it a blue ocean market, right? It's the latent legal market. That's the term of art. And so it's been pegged at $1 trillion worldwide market opportunity. $1 trillion worldwide market opportunity, and very few lawyers are filling that need. So there's money to be made.
Not all attorneys need to be in fancy offices with bookshelves full of encyclopedias behind them, right? The second question, tell us something that happened early in your life or career that impacts the way that you're working today.
I was just raised in a family that encouraged giving back and volunteering. And I was always involved in those types of things. And we didn't have a crazy means. We're very middle class, we didn't have to worry about money, but we also didn't have all the money to do everything in the world. I am a first generation attorney. Both my parents are in sales, and so, but they always just instilled in me volunteering and giving back. And so that's what I do. And to this day, I'd much rather volunteer than donate money to a cause, because I just feel like you personally get more out of it, but also I feel like you're doing more by actually showing up somewhere and helping out in some way.
Yeah, you see the effects of it instead of just sending in $100 to an organization. You spend a couple hours there seeing what their mission is and working with them.
Yeah.
And by the way, if your parents are in sales, they must have instilled that in you as well. And Rory and I have talked a lot on this podcast about how they don't teach sales in law school. They just teach the law, but you guys all as attorneys have to figure out how to make money with knowing the law. So, kudos to you for finding your way to a sales element as well with your business.
30-second story. I was just speaking to a law school of first-year law students. They just started. It was their second week. And I said, let's see a show of hands. It was 150 students. Let's see a show of hands who wants to be in private practice. A lot of them raised their hands. I said, congratulations, you're also in sales. You didn't know that when you started, but I just want to let you know now, because I learned that a few years into practicing law. So, practice those skills, start building that book, start building relationships. Think about it now.
Yeah. Final question. Tell us something you're listening to or watching or reading these days. Anything in the world.
So I don't have a lot of time for watching shows like I used to, being a parent and a solopreneur. However, Foundation on Apple TV Plus, peak sci-fi, 10 out of 10 sci-fi. If you're interested in sci-fi, Foundation is probably the best sci-fi show I've ever watched. And Star Wars is fantasy, not sci-fi, okay? But and I'm not a huge Trekkie, like Star Trek fan. I kind of like some of the stuff. I frankly like the more recent movie that J.J. Abrams did, like the reboot more, which is more action packed or whatever. But like I know Trek is like high sci-fi stuff. But this, from what I've seen of Star Trek, like Foundation blows it out of the water. Phenomenal TV, phenomenal sci-fi.
All right, 2 thumbs up for Foundation. Well, Matthew Kerbis, where can people learn about you? We're going to put all the stuff in the show notes. I know you have a lot of URLs. What's the what's the one place people should go first?
Yes, GoDaddy loves me. I have a lot of URLs. So subscriptionattorney.com is where you could find me. I mean, if you Google or search on LinkedIn, The Subscription Attorney, you could also find me in a lot of places there. LinkedIn is the only social media platform I really use. My DMs are open. Feel free to connect with or follow me on LinkedIn. And the podcast is lawsubscribe.com. If you're interested in seeing like this interview, if you're listening to it and you want to watch the video of it, I link to all the YouTube recordings at MatthewKerbis.com, MathewKerbis.com. It's my speaker portfolio. I recommend every professional has a speaker portfolio. And then you could also see the other places that I've spoken at MathewKerbis.com. And I mean, if you're interested in some of the other stuff I do, KerbisVerse.com is like where I put all that stuff. But that is like, I don't typically market that. We could spend a whole 30 minutes on that.
We certainly didn't talk about the wedding officiant or the esports attorney part, but you know,
it all comes back to my law firm in one way or another, believe it or not. Get up in front of a room of 200 people and you do a really good job officiating a wedding and you're making money there, right? Would you rather spend money marketing or make money marketing? And then they're all like, hey, what do you do? I'm like, I'm an attorney. Oh, tell me more. Yeah. So, you know, it's it all comes back to the law firm.
Well, the last wedding we went to was a friend of ours that was officiant, and I think she's done probably 3 or 4 because she keeps doing such a good job with all of our friends. They keep asking her to do the weddings.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Rory. Where can people find out about you if they want to learn more?
If you just go to rorygill.com, you'll see all the different ways you can get in touch with me on my social media and all the different ways I can help you out.
Awesome. Matthew Kerbis, thank you for all of your time today. We really appreciate it. It's a fascinating topic. We have not covered this on the podcast before. If you are an attorney, solo attorney, or working with a firm looking to really grow your firm, this is a model that you should consider, and now you know who to contact. If you'd like to be on this podcast or have questions for us, reach out to me, Jason, at nexthometitletown.com. We'll get you right to me. We'll get you set up on our calendar if it's a good fit. If you have questions for me or Matthew Kerbis or Rory, I can pass those along too. Gents, thanks so much for all your time today. We really appreciate it. Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed it, 5-star reviews are always our best friend, and we love your comments too. We'll see you next time.